Okay, welcome to Lesson 7-8. I'm going to try to keep this my shortest Course 1 video of the year. And what this graph is about misleading graphs and statistics. So all chapter long we've been talking about all these ways to graph and display data. And in most cases, graphs, whether they be line plots or bar graphs or histograms or circle graphs or broken line graphs, all are really good at showing lots of information, and they really actually help you understand it better. The problem is that sometimes people use math and statistics to try to trick people. All right? So let's take a look at an example. Suppose I give you the following bar graph, okay? And it shows candidates A, B, and C. If you were to look at this bar graph, and I intentionally did not put anything over here on this axis, it looks like candidate C is getting absolutely killed. Okay, candidate A, is also getting killed, but not nearly as bad as C. And candidate B is like winning in a walkaway, right? All right. Well, what if I label the graph and I say that this represents 30% of the people support the person, this represents 35% people support, and this is 40%. All right, now it doesn't change the math. Candidate B is winning no matter what, right? But is candidate B winning by like 12 times as much as C? No.
I think so.
All right. No, it's only a slight gap. And actually, if this is early in the election, candidate C might still catch up and win. And candidate A is only 5 points behind candidate B. So if I were to graph this accurately over here on the right, so I'm actually going to start at 0 and go up 10, 20, 30, 40, nice and evenly. A's support would be at 35%. That would be this tall. Okay. B's support is 40%, so that would be this tall. And C's support would be 30%. That'd be this tall. All right. Now, yes, B is still winning. A's in second, C's in third. But this right here is an accurate representation of how they're actually doing. And they're actually not that far apart. It's nothing like what this looks like. Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. So now, I could go even further. If I don't go from 0 to 40, but I go all the way up to 0 to 100, now the bars will all look shorter, and the differences between them will look even smaller. So I could draw a misleading graph in another way by going way up high so that now I'm actually emphasizing the fact that there are almost no differences between them. Well, that's not really accurate either. So my point is, if you're clever about how you can draw a graph, you can actually try to sway people. Now, there is something wrong with this graph. This first graph wasn't actually accurate. The mathematical data is, but if you do this, if you skip from 0 all the way up to 30 really quickly, what you're supposed to put into the graph is this little checkmarky symbol like that. Okay, and then if you see something like this, it means they've cut out a big chunk of the graph. And anytime you see that, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be overemphasizing the differences. Okay, so this is clearly a misleading graph. And you could do the same thing with line graphs, broken line graphs. You can't really do this with circle graphs. Circle graphs aren't really able to be manipulated like this. But any kind of graph where you go up vertically, like a bar graph or a broken line graph, you can absolutely do this. Okay, and you can do it in either direction. You can intentionally try to make the differences between things look bigger, or you can intentionally try to make the differences between things look smaller by stretching out the axis one way or the other. Okay, that's it. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to be smarter than the average consumer. We're going to try to recognize graphs like that and redraw them, or at least think about them a little bit closer to the way they really are, to the data they really represent, instead of having these really skewed views. Okay, but at the same time, when we do the practice questions, I'm going to give you graphs that are straight up and say, well, how would you skew this graph if you're trying to persuade somebody one way or another? And it doesn't have to be something dubious like candidates. You could do the same thing if you're trying to convince your parents to raise your allowance or let you do something. Okay, so that's it. That's all I have for misleading graphs. We'll practice these in class tomorrow. So we're just over 4 minutes. And we're going to call that a wrap. Before I go, I want to say thanks to my advisor group. He's quietly watched as I've done this. And so in terms of who the guests are, we had 11 guests from Mr. Gunn's advisor group, the Otter Claws. Take care. Thanks for watching, everybody.